The autumn wind carried dust and mockery through Silver Ridge's main street as Jack Sullivan counted out his final coins on the weathered counter of the land office. $1 silver. That's all he had left after 3 years of drought killed his cattle and buried his dreams 6 feet under Wyoming soil. "You're buying the Rosewood Hotel for $1? The clerk's laughter echoed through the cramped office. "Son, that place hasn't had a guest in 5 years. Roof leaks. Floors are rotting, and the saloon downstairs is haunted, they say." Jack's jaw tightened as he signed the deed. Behind him, 3 ranchers from the Cattlemen's Association snickered. "Sullivan's finally lost his mind," one muttered. "That hotel's been condemned twice. He'll be begging for work by winter." Before we continue with Jack's story, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us and motivates us to bring you more quality stories like this one. Also, I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments. But Jack wasn't listening to their ridicule. He needed shelter, and this crumbling 3-story building was all his dollar could buy. As he walked toward his new property, he noticed a young woman sitting on the hotel's front steps, her dress torn at the hem, her face streaked with trail dust and dried tears. She clutched a golden locket in her trembling hands, staring at it as if it held her last breath of hope. "Ma'am?" Jack approached slowly, removing his hat. "This building's condemned. It's not safe." The woman looked up, and Jack felt something shift in his chest. Her eyes were the color of amber in firelight, but they held a desperate emptiness that he recognized, the same look he'd seen in his own reflection after burying his brother. "I know," her voice cracked. I need somewhere to stay. Just one night. I can pay." She held out the locket. "This was my mother's. It's real gold." "Please." Jack crouched down to her level, his broad shoulders blocking the setting sun. "Gold isn't what we need here. What we need is someone willing to work. Can you cook?" She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Yes, I can cook, and clean, and mend. But sir, I have nothing to—" "You have your skills. That's worth more than gold to a man with an empty stomach and a hotel to rebuild." He extended his hand. "I'm Jack Sullivan. I just bought this place for $1, so we're both starting from nothing. What's your name?" "Claire." She hesitated before taking his hand. "Claire Morrison." Her hand was small in his, but her grip was stronger than he expected. As he helped her to her feet, he noticed the bruises around her wrist, finger-shaped marks that told a story he didn't need to hear aloud. "You running from someone, Claire?" She pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. "Does it matter?" "It matters if they're following you. I need to know what I'm dealing with." The words came out flat, rehearsed, as if she'd had to explain Miss Shame before. "The man he sold me to, he wasn't kind. I ran when I could. I've been walking for 3 days." Jack felt anger coil in his gut. He'd seen a lot of ugly things in his 32 years, but a father selling his daughter like cattle turned his stomach. "Well, you're not property anymore. You're a person, and you're under my roof now. Anyone comes looking for you, they'll have to go through me first." He pushed open the hotel's front door, which groaned on rusty hinges. "It's not much, but it's ours. Fair warning, though, the whole place is falling apart." The interior was worse than Jack expected. Dust coated every surface. Wallpaper peeled in long strips, and several floorboards were missing entirely. But the structure was solid. The bones were good. "I've seen worse," Claire said quietly, and he believed her. They spent the first hour making one room habitable. Jack cleared out debris while Claire swept and used her petticoat to clean the windows. As twilight settled over Silver Ridge, they sat on the floor of the lobby, sharing a can of beans Jack had in his saddlebag. "Why did you really buy this place?" Claire asked, watching him in the dim light. "Same reason you're here. I had nowhere else to go." Jack poked at the beans with his spoon. "Lost my ranch. Lost my brother to pneumonia last winter. Lost everything I built in 10 years. This hotel was the only thing my last dollar could buy. I'm sorry about your brother. I'm sorry about your father." They sat in comfortable silence, two broken people sharing broken shelter. The first week passed in hard labor. Jack repaired the roof, while Claire scrubbed years of grime from the walls. They worked from dawn until their hands bled, taking breaks only when exhaustion forced them to stop. Jack learned that Claire had a sharp wit hidden beneath her initial timidity. When he nearly fell through a rotted staircase, she'd called up, "If you die, I'm keeping the hotel." "You mean my dollar hotel?" he'd shouted back. "Our dollar hotel." He'd laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. Claire learned that Jack was gentler than his scarred hands and weathered face suggested. He always gave her the larger portion of their meals. He never entered a room without knocking first. And when nightmares woke her screaming, he'd sit outside her door and talk about nothing. The weather, his plans for the hotel, stories about his brother, until her breathing calmed. "You don't have to do that," she told him one morning. "Do what?" "Stand guard over my broken pieces." Jack paused in hammering a new board into place. "You're not broken, Claire. You're healing." There's a difference. On the 10th day, Jack decided to tackle the saloon on the hotel's first floor. The space had once been Silver Ridge's social hub, but now it was a tomb of overturned tables and shattered bottles. As he cleared debris from behind the bar, his boot hit something hollow. "Claire, come look at this." She appeared from the kitchen, flour dusting her cheek. "What did you find?" Jack had already pried up 3 floorboards, revealing a dark space below. The smell of earth and something else, something metallic, wafted up. "A cellar?" Claire knelt beside him, peering into the darkness. "More than that. Look." Jack struck a match, and the flame revealed not a cellar, but a tunnel, tall enough to walk through, supported by timber beams, stretching into darkness. "Where does it go?" Claire whispered. Jack felt that familiar pull of curiosity that had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count. Only one way to find out. They laughed when the cowboy took over the hotel for $1, until he discovered the tunnel beneath the saloon. Armed with lanterns and rope, they descended into the tunnel. The passage was surprisingly well constructed, with packed earth walls and a level floor. They walked for what felt like a quarter-mile before the tunnel opened into a large chamber. Jack raised his lantern high, and they both gasped. The room was filled with crates, dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling. But it wasn't the crates that made Jack's blood run cold. It was what lay scattered among them: old blankets, empty whiskey bottles, and chains, shackles bolted to the wall. "Oh God," Claire breathed. "Jack, what is this place?" He moved through the space, his military training kicking in as he assessed the scene. The crates were marked with dates, some as recent as 6 months ago. He pried one open. Gold coins. Another held jewelry. A third contained land deeds and banknotes. "It's a smuggling operation." Jack's voice was grim. "And those chains, someone was holding people here. We have to tell the sheriff." The sheriff? A voice echoed from the tunnel entrance. Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Jack spun, pushing Claire behind him, as three men emerged from the shadows. The one in front wore a badge. Sheriff Tom Bradley, the same man who'd sold Jack the hotel for $1. Suddenly, everything made sense. The low price, the eagerness to be rid of the property, the abandoned state. You knew, Jack said flatly. You knew what was under here. Bradley smiled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Course I knew. Been using this tunnel for 5 years to move stolen goods between here and the old mine. Worked perfect until that damn structural inspector started nosing around last year. Had to abandon the operation, condemn the building. He gestured to his companions, the same ranchers who'd laughed at Jack in the land office. We've been waiting for things to cool down. Then you came along. Convenient, one of the ranchers sneered. We can pin everything on the crazy cowboy and his whore. Two drifters with no family to ask questions. Claire's sharp intake of breath cut through Jack like a blade. He felt her trembling behind him. She's not your property to name, Jack said, his voice deadly calm. And we're walking out of here. Bradley laughed. I don't think so. See, we need this place empty again, and dead people are very good at keeping quiet. The sheriff reached for his gun. Jack moved first. Years of cavalry training made his draw lightning fast. His first shot shattered Bradley's lantern, plunging half the chamber into darkness. His second shot hit the tunnel support beam behind the ranchers, sending dirt cascading down. Run! Jack grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward a second passage he'd spotted, another tunnel branching off from the main chamber. Gunshots echoed behind them as they ran. The tunnel twisted and climbed, older than the first, narrower. Jack's broad shoulders scraped against the walls. Behind them, he could hear the men shouting, their footsteps pounding. The tunnel ended abruptly at a rotted wooden door. Jack threw his weight against it, once, twice. On the third hit, it exploded outward, and they tumbled into moonlight. They were in the old churchyard, 2 blocks from the hotel. Jack! Claire screamed. He turned to see Bradley emerge from the tunnel, gun raised. Jack pushed Claire aside and felt the bullet meant for her punch into his shoulder instead. The impact spun him around, and he hit the ground hard. Through dimming vision, he saw Claire scoop up a fallen branch and swing it with all her strength. It connected with Bradley's skull with a sickening crack. The sheriff dropped like a stone. Then Claire was kneeling beside him, her hands pressed against his bleeding shoulder. Stay with me. Jack, please, stay with me. I'm fine, he slurred. You hit like a mule. This isn't funny. Tears streamed down her face. You jumped in front of a bullet for me. Had to. You're the only one who knows how I like my coffee. Despite everything, she laughed, a broken, desperate sound. You're an idiot. You're idiot if you'll have me. The ranchers burst from the tunnel, but townspeople were already running toward the gunshots. Someone had heard the commotion. Jack watched through hazy vision as the men tried to flee, only to be tackled by angry citizens who'd been wondering where Sheriff Bradley had been getting his money. Claire kept pressure on his wound, whispering, "Go slow. It hurts. I know it hurts, but stay with me." "I'll die before I hurt you," Jack murmured, though his words made no sense. Everything was getting fuzzy. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was Claire's voice. Together. We're doing this together. Jack woke in his own bed, the one decent mattress they'd found in the hotel. Sunlight streamed through clean windows, His shoulder throbbed with a deep, persistent ache, but he was alive. "You're awake." Claire appeared in the doorway carrying a tray. Her hair was pinned up, and she wore a simple blue dress he didn't recognize. "Don't try to move. Doctor said the bullet went clean through, but you lost a lot of blood." "How long?" 3 days. The town's been in an uproar. Turns out Bradley and his friends had been running that smuggling ring for years. They'd steal from travelers, hold them in that chamber until they could be moved, or she trailed off, swallowing hard. There are families who finally have answers about missing loved ones. Jack tried to sit up, wincing. Claire rushed forward, helping him adjust the pillows. "The hotel?" he asked. "Still standing. Actually, the town council came by yesterday. With Bradley arrested and his assets seized, they're using his confiscated money to compensate his victims. They've allocated funds to help us repair the hotel properly." She smiled, and it transformed her face. "Turns out your dollar investment is paying off." "Our dollar investment," Jack corrected. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hand finding his. "Jack, about what you said before you passed out. Did you mean it?" "Which part?" "I said a lot of foolish things. The part about being your idiot." Jack's rough fingers intertwined with hers. "I meant every word. I know we've only known each other 2 weeks. I know we're both carrying more baggage than a freight wagon. But Claire, when I thought that bullet might hit you..." He stopped, his throat tight. "I see a woman worth saving, worth fighting for, worth building a life with." "I'm not looking to be saved, Jack Sullivan." "Good, because I'm not looking to save anyone. I'm looking for a partner, someone to build this ridiculous dollar hotel with, someone to burn dinner with on bad days and celebrate with on good ones, someone to face whatever comes next together." Claire leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. "Together," she whispered. "Together," he confirmed. Their first kiss tasted like coffee and second chances. 6 weeks later, Jack stood in the hotel's refurbished lobby, adjusting his collar for the 100th time. The space was transformed. Polished wood floors, fresh paint, new furniture. The saloon had been converted into a proper dining room. "Stop fidgeting," his best man, the town's actual new sheriff, muttered. "You're making me nervous. Where is she? What if she changed her mind?" "She saved your life by hitting a corrupt lawman with a tree branch. I think she's committed." The door opened, and Jack forgot how to breathe. Claire walked toward him in a simple white dress, carrying wildflowers they'd picked together that morning. Her auburn hair was loose, cascading over her shoulders. But it was her smile, radiant and unafraid, that stopped his heart. The ceremony was short and sweet, conducted by the circuit preacher in front of 24 townspeople who'd come to celebrate. When Jack kissed his bride, the small crowd erupted in cheers. At the reception in their hotel dining room, Claire pulled him close as someone played fiddle. "You know they still talk about it," she murmured against his chest. "How you bought this place for $1. Best dollar I ever spent." "You didn't buy the hotel, Jack. You bought a new life for both of us." "No," he corrected, spinning her gently. "We built a new life. There's a difference." As they danced, Jack looked around at their hotel, their home. The building that everyone said was worthless had become the heart of Silver Ridge. The dining room was full of laughter. The rooms above were booked for the next month, and the tunnel below had been sealed and forgotten. But more than any of that, Jack had found something he'd stopped believing in: hope. "What are you thinking?" Claire asked. noticing his far-off expression, "that I'd spend $1,000 on a condemned hotel if it meant finding you at the end." She laughed, that beautiful sound that had become his favorite melody. "Good thing you only had $1 then. I'd hate to see you go broke." "Too late. I'm already bankrupt." "What?" "You've stolen every last piece of my heart, Mrs. Sullivan. I'm completely broke." Claire stood on her tiptoes to kiss him, uncaring of their audience. "Then I guess we're even, because you're not property. You're a person, and you're mine." Years later, when travelers would ask how the Rosewood Hotel became the most successful establishment in Silver Ridge, Jack and Claire would share a knowing look. "We bought it for $1, Jack would say, "and discovered something more valuable than gold beneath the saloon," Claire would add, squeezing his hand. They never specified whether they meant the recovered stolen goods that helped rebuild the town, or the foundation of trust they'd built in those dark tunnels. Some treasures weren't meant to be explained, only experienced. The morning after their wedding, Claire woke to find Jack's side of the bed empty. Panic seized her chest before she heard the rhythmic sound of hammering from below. She dressed quickly and descended to find her husband on a ladder, repairing the crown molding in the main hallway. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, admiring the way his muscles flexed with each swing of the hammer. Jack glanced down, a sheepish grin crossing his face. "Old habits. Been waking at dawn for 30 years. Figured I might as well be useful." He climbed down and pulled her close, sawdust dusting his shirt. "Besides, wanted to finish this before our first guest arrives this afternoon." "Guest?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "You booked someone without telling me?" "Not exactly booked, more like inherited." Jack's expression grew serious. "Remember how I told you about my brother Daniel? Before he died, he was writing to a woman back east, a school teacher named Abigail. She's been traveling for 3 weeks to get here. Doesn't know Daniel's gone." Claire's heart constricted. "Oh, Jack. I wrote her after the funeral, but the letter must not have reached her in time. She'll arrive on the afternoon stage, expecting to meet the man she was planning to marry." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "I have to tell her, and I figured the least I could do was offer her a place to stay while she figures out what to do next." This was why she loved him, this bone-deep decency that made him take on other people's burdens as if they were his own. "We'll tell her together," Claire said firmly, "and she can stay as long as she needs." Abigail Winters stepped off the stagecoach at precisely 2 o'clock, a small woman with steel-gray eyes and auburn hair pinned in a severe bun. She carried herself with the rigid posture of someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible in the world. Jack stepped forward, hat in hand. "Miss Winters, I'm Jack Sullivan, Daniel's brother." Abigail's face lit with relief. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm so pleased to finally—" She stopped, her sharp eyes catching something in Jack's expression. "Where is Daniel?" There was no gentle way to say it. "He passed, Miss Winters, last winter. Pneumonia took him quick." The color drained from Abigail's face. She swayed, and Claire rushed forward to steady her. "I wrote you," Jack continued, his voice rough with old grief. "Sent the letter to your last address. I left Boston 6 weeks ago." Abigail's voice was barely a whisper. "I never received it." She looked around the dusty street, as if seeing it for the first time, truly seeing it. The harsh reality of the frontier, the weight of her mistake. "I sold everything. My position at the school, my father's house. Everything to come here and marry a man who's—" She couldn't finish. "Dead," Jack said quietly. "I'm sorry. If I'd known you hadn't gotten my letter, I would have sent another. Hell, I would have traveled to Boston myself to stop you. Abigail straightened, pride pulling her spine rigid. I appreciate your honesty, Mr. Sullivan. If you could direct me to the nearest hotel, I'll impose on your kindness no further. You're looking at it, Claire said gently. The Rosewood Hotel. My husband and I run it, and you're welcome to stay as our guest until you decide what you'd like to do. I couldn't possibly. You can and you will. Jack's tone left no room for argument. Daniel would have wanted us to help you. Your family, Miss Winters. Or you would have been. Abigail's composure cracked then, tears spilling down her cheeks. Claire guided her inside, away from the curious eyes of townspeople gathered around the stage stop. Over the following weeks, Abigail became part of their small household. She was prickly and proud, refusing charity but accepting work. She took over the hotel's bookkeeping and correspondence, her neat handwriting and mathematical precision transforming their chaotic record system into something almost professional. But at night, Claire could hear her crying through the thin walls. One evening, Claire knocked softly on Abigail's door. "May I come in?" Abigail sat at the small writing desk, staring at a stack of letters before her. Daniel's letters, tied with a faded blue ribbon. I keep reading them, trying to find some warning sign I missed. Some indication that he was ill. There wasn't one. Claire sat on the edge of the bed. Jack told me Daniel was healthy as a horse one day, burning with fever the next. Some things we can't prepare for. I loved him. Abigail's voice broke. I know that sounds absurd. We never met in person, but his letters were so full of hope and dreams. He made me believe I could have a different life than the one my father planned. Endless years teaching other people's children while having none of my own. It's not absurd, Claire said softly. I fell in love with Jack in less than 2 weeks. Sometimes the heart knows before the mind catches up. Abigail turned to face her. How did you do it? How did you trust again after whatever made you run? Claire hesitated, then pulled up her sleeve, revealing the faded bruises on her wrist. My father sold me to pay his gambling debts. The man who bought me thought he owned me body and soul. I learned quickly that trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. She lowered her sleeve. But Jack never asked me to trust him. He just showed up every day and proved himself worthy of it. There's a difference. I don't know if I can do that again. Open my heart to that kind of loss. Then don't. Not yet. Claire squeezed her hand. Heal first. Build yourself back up. The rest will come when it's ready. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The trouble arrived on a Tuesday in the form of a man named Elias Crane. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the cold eyes of a snake measuring its prey. He rented a room and paid in advance for a week, his manners polished, but somehow wrong, like a well-oiled gun. What brings you to Silver Ridge, Mr. Crane? Jack asked, as he carried the man's expensive leather trunk upstairs. Business opportunities. Crane's smile didn't reach his eyes. I've heard this town is on the verge of significant growth. Railroads coming through, I understand. Rumors, Jack said carefully. Nothing confirmed. Still, a man of vision can see the potential. Crane's gaze swept over the hotel's refurbished interior. Take this establishment, for instance. Prime location, good bones. In the right hands, it could be quite profitable. Something in his tone made Jack's jaw tighten. It's profitable enough for us. For now. Crane settled into his room with the air of a man planning to stay longer than a week. That evening, Jack confided his unease to Claire as they prepared dinner in the hotel's kitchen. I don't like him, Jack said, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. Something about the way he looks at the hotel. Like he's already counting the money he'll make when he owns it. He can look all he wants. We're not selling. Agreed. But men like Crane don't take no for an answer easily. Jack's instincts proved correct. Over the next few days, Crane made himself aggressively pleasant, striking up conversations with every person in town. He bought drinks at the saloon, attended Sunday service, and made strategic donations to the church building fund. And he made offers. First, to Jack. "I'll give you $5,000 for the hotel. That's a significant return on your $1 investment." Not interested. Then to the town council. "I'm prepared to invest heavily in Silver Ridge's infrastructure. New businesses, jobs for residents. All I need is a suitable headquarters, perhaps that hotel on Main Street." The council members began looking at Jack differently, seeing not a neighbor, but an obstacle to prosperity. But the worst came when Crane cornered Abigail in the hotel parlor. "Miss Winters, isn't it?" He'd done his research. "I understand you're in a difficult position. No family, no prospects, living on the charity of strangers." Abigail stiffened. "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan are not strangers. They're friends. Friends who are holding you back." Crane leaned forward conspiratorially. "I'm looking for a business partner. Someone educated, refined, capable of managing the front of house for a first-class establishment. I could offer you a position, a percentage of ownership even. You'd never have to depend on anyone's charity again." For a moment, just a moment, Abigail was tempted. The promise of independence, of security, of never being vulnerable again. Then she remembered Claire's words, "The heart knows before the mind catches up." "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Crane, but I must decline. The Sullivans aren't holding me back. They're holding me up. There's a difference." Crane's pleasant mask slipped, revealing cold calculation beneath. "Pity. I do hope they can continue to provide for you. Businesses fail so easily out here. Accidents happen. Fires, structural collapses, mysterious thefts that drive away customers." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. One never knows what tomorrow might bring. Abigail found Jack immediately. He threatened the hotel. Jack's expression went hard. Did he now? That night, Jack didn't sleep. He sat in the lobby with his rifle across his lap, watching the shadows outside. Claire joined him at midnight, pressing a cup of coffee into his hands. "We should go to the sheriff," she said. "And tell him what?" Crane made vague comments that could be interpreted as threats. "We have no proof." Jack's jaw clenched. "But I'll be damned if I let anyone take what we've built." "What we've built?" Claire corrected, sitting beside him. "You're not alone in this fight, Jack Sullivan." He kissed her forehead. "I know. But that's what scares me most. Before, I only had myself to lose. Now, I have you, and Abigail, and this hotel that's become a home. I have everything. Which means I have everything to lose. Then we make sure we don't lose." Claire's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "We're smarter than him. We know this town, and we're not afraid to fight dirty." Jack almost smiled. "When did you get so fierce?" "The day I stopped being property and became a person." She squeezed his hand. "You taught me that. Now let me return the favor. We face this together." "Together," he agreed. The next morning brought disaster anyway. Jack was replacing shingles on the roof when he heard Abigail scream. He was down the ladder and through the front door in seconds, his heart pounding. Abigail stood in the dining room, staring at a letter in shaking hands. Her face had gone white as bleached bone. "What is it?" Claire rushed in from the kitchen. "My father, Abigail's voice was hollow. "He's found me. He's coming here." "I thought you said you had no family," Jack said carefully. "I don't. Not anymore." Abigail sank into a chair. "My father is Cornelius Winters. He owns half of Boston's shipping industry. When I told him I was leaving to marry a Western rancher, he disowned me. Said if I walked out his door, I was dead to him." Her hands trembled. "I thought he meant it. I wanted him to mean it. What does he want?" Claire asked. Abigail handed her the letter. Claire read aloud. "Abigail, your foolishness has caused enough embarrassment to our family. I've learned of your fiancé's death and your current circumstances. I'm coming to Silver Ridge to bring you home where you belong. We will discuss your marriage to Preston Oliver, as originally planned. This nonsense ends now. Father." "Preston Oliver?" Jack's eyes narrowed. "Who's that?" "A business associate of my father's, 40 years old, twice widowed, with the personality of wet newspaper." Abigail's voice shook with anger and fear. "My father arranged our betrothal when I was 17. I've spent 10 years avoiding the man. I came west to escape him, to choose my own life. And now nothing's changed," Claire interrupted. "You're still choosing your own life. Your father can't force you to return. You don't know him. He's ruthless, powerful. He'll make life impossible for you, for Jack, for this entire town if I don't go with him." Jack crouched in front of her chair, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Let him try. Abigail, you saved every penny we made this month with your bookkeeping system. You've handled suppliers like a general commanding troops. You've become part of this family." His voice roughened. "Daniel would have been damn proud of the woman you are. I'm not letting his memory be dishonored by some Boston tyrant dragging you back to a life you don't want. But no buts. We fight this together." That word again, together. It seemed to be the foundation on which the Rosewood Hotel was truly built. Cornelius Winters arrived 3 days later in a private coach that cost more than most houses in Silver Ridge. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 60s, with iron gray hair and eyes like chips of ice. Behind him came Preston Oliver, exactly as Abigail described. A pale man with thin lips and the bearing of someone who'd never been told no. And behind them, like a bad penny, was Elias Crane. "So that's the connection," Jack muttered, watching from the hotel window. "Crane's working for Winters." Cornelius strode into the Rosewood Hotel as if he owned it, Preston and Crane flanking him like trained dogs. "Abigail!" His voice boomed through the lobby. "Gather your things. We're leaving within the hour." Abigail descended the stairs slowly, her spine straight, her hands steady. "Hello, Father. I'm afraid I won't be joining you. Silver Ridge is my home now." "Don't be ridiculous. You have no money, no prospects, no—" "I have a job. I have friends. I have a life I chose for myself." Abigail's voice never wavered. "That's more than I ever had in Boston." Cornelius's face purpled with rage. "You're living off the charity of these frontier trash, working like a common servant. I won't allow it." "Frontier trash?" Jack stepped forward, every muscle tense. "That's real rich coming from a man who treats his own daughter like property. Stay out of this, cowboy. This is family business." "She is family," Claire said, appearing at Jack's side, "which makes it our business." Preston Oliver spoke for the first time, his voice reedy and entitled. "Abigail, be reasonable. You're not getting any younger. Your father has generously convinced me to overlook your adventures. We can still salvage this." "Salvage?" Abigail laughed, sharp and brittle. You mean you'll still take the damaged goods? How magnanimous, Preston. But I'm afraid I must decline. I'd rather die alone in the dust than spend one day as your wife. Cornelius slammed his fist on the reception desk. Enough. Crane, fetch her things. She's coming with us, even if we have to drag her. Touch her and you'll regret it, Jack said quietly. That tone, cold and flat, made even Cornelius pause. It was the voice of a man who'd killed before and wouldn't hesitate to do so again. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Abigail stays here by her own choice. You want to cut her off? Already done. You want to disinherit her? Go ahead. But you're not taking her from this hotel. We'll see about that. Cornelius turned to Crane. I believe we discussed certain business opportunities. Perhaps it's time to explore them. Crane smiled coldly. Indeed, I've made inquiries about this property. Turns out, there are several outstanding liens against it from the previous owner, Sheriff Bradley's debts, that I've purchased. The total comes to $8,000, due immediately. Jack's stomach dropped. Bradley's debts aren't ours. We bought the property legally. You bought it at a sheriff's auction of condemned property, but the liens were never officially cleared. A technicality, I'm afraid, but legally binding. Pay the $8,000 or I foreclose. You have 72 hours. The room's spun. $8,000 might as well be $8 million. They'd put every cent into repairs and supplies. That's extortion, Claire breathed. That's business, Crane replied smoothly. Nothing personal. Well, mostly nothing personal. Cornelius smiled triumphantly. So here's what's going to happen. Abigail will return to Boston with us. In exchange, I'll instruct Mr. Crane to forgive the debt. Your precious hotel will be saved. Father, you can't. I can, and I will. You have my terms. Cornelius headed for the door. 72 hours, Abigail. Choose wisely. Your freedom or their home. I'll be at the Grand Hotel when you come to your senses. After they left, the three of them stood in stunned silence. I'll go with him, Abigail said finally, her voice hollow. I won't let you lose everything because of me. No, Jack's tone was absolute. Jack, be reasonable. I said no, we don't negotiate with extortionists, and we don't sacrifice family. He began pacing, his mind racing. There has to be another way. $8,000 in 3 days? Claire shook her head. Even if we sold everything we own, we wouldn't raise half that. They spent that night brainstorming, growing increasingly desperate as each idea hit a dead end. By dawn, they'd gotten nowhere. Abigail sat at the writing desk, staring at Daniel's letters for what felt like the 100th time. Her vision blurred with tears of frustration and guilt. Then she noticed something. The watermark on one of Daniel's earlier letters, different from the others. She held it up to the lamplight, and her breath caught. Jack! Claire! Come here! They stumbled into the parlor, exhausted and red-eyed. Look at this, showed them the letter. This watermark, it's from the Silver Ridge Mining Company. Daniel was writing to me on company stationery. So? Jack frowned. He worked at the mine for a few months before striking out on his own. But look at the date. Abigail's hands trembled with excitement. This was written a month before the mine closed, and look what he says here. I've stumbled onto something that might change everything. Can't say more in a letter, but if things work out, we'll have enough to start our ranch with money to spare. Claire leaned in. What are you thinking? The tunnel. Abigail looked at them with dawning hope. The one beneath the hotel. What if it doesn't just connect to the old mine? What if Daniel found something in that mine? Something valuable. And that's why Bradley's operation was really here? Not just to smuggle stolen goods, but to mine something? Jack was already moving. The chamber where we found the stolen goods. There was another passage we didn't explore because we were running from Bradley. They gathered lanterns and rope and descended once more into the earth beneath the Rosewood Hotel. The chamber looked different in peaceful lamplight, less terrifying, more sad. Evidence of Bradley's crimes still littered the space, but they moved past it to the narrow passage Jack had noticed during their escape. Tunnel was older, rougher, clearly not part of Bradley's operation. They walked for 20 minutes, the passage climbing steadily, until it opened into a natural cavern. Jack raised his lantern high and whistled low. The cavern walls glittered with silver ore, a massive vein running through the rock like frozen lightning. "My God," Claire breathed. "This is what Daniel found. This is why Bradley was so eager to abandon the hotel," Jack realized. He must have discovered this after Daniel died, used the tunnel to mine it secretly, mixing the silver in with his stolen goods so no one would question where his money came from. Abigail touched the wall reverently. Daniel wrote that he'd filed a claim, but never told anyone where it was. He wanted to surprise me when I arrived. Her voice broke. He died before he could tell anyone. "But the claim would still be valid," Claire said urgently. "If we can find it. If we can find it, we own this mine." Jack was already calculating. This much silver. We could pay off Crane's debt 10 times over. They tore through Daniel's belongings for the next 12 hours. Claire searched his old trunk in the hotel's attic. Jack combed through papers in the land office. Abigail reread every letter, looking for coded messages. It was Abigail who finally found it, hidden in the last letter Daniel wrote, the one that arrived weeks after his death. Tucked inside the envelope was a second sealed paper. She thought it was just another page of the letter and had never opened it. With shaking hands, she broke the seal. "Claim number 4729, she read aloud. Registered to Daniel Sullivan, November 15th, 1885. The Abigail Mine." Tears streamed down her face. "He named it after me." Jack pulled her into a tight embrace. "He loved you. Even though you never met, he loved you enough to name his future after you." They filed the claim officially the next morning. The assayer confirmed what they'd seen. The vein was worth at least $30,000, maybe more. Within hours, they had investors lined up, eager to advance them money against the mine's value. Cornelius Winters was having breakfast at the Grand Hotel when Jack walked in and dropped a bank draft for $8,000 on his table. "That's for Crane. The liens are paid in full." Jack's smile was sharp. "And just so we're clear, Abigail isn't going anywhere. She owns a third of a very profitable silver mine. She's wealthier than half of Boston now. Still want to drag her back to marry your business partner?" Cornelius's face went from red to purple. "You're bluffing. The assayer's report is public record. Go check if you don't believe me." Jack leaned down, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "But hear this, Winters. Abigail isn't property. She's not a pawn in your business deals. She's a woman who's built a life out here, a good life, with people who value her for who she is, not who she's connected to. You try to take that from her, and I promise you'll regret it. Is that a threat? No, it's a fact. Out here we take care of our own, and Abigail's one of ours." Preston Oliver chose that moment to speak up. "Cornelius, perhaps we should reconsider. If Miss Winters has indeed acquired wealth—" "Shut up, Preston." Cornelius glared at Jack. "Fine, she can rot out here with you frontier trash, but don't come crying to me when this all falls apart." "Wouldn't dream of it," Jack said cheerfully. Have a safe trip back to Boston. When he returned to the Rosewood Hotel, he found Abigail and Claire in the kitchen, making celebration pies. "It's done," Jack announced. "Your father's leaving on the afternoon stage." Abigail set down her rolling pin, flour dusting her cheeks. "Thank you. For everything. For not letting him take me. For believing I was worth fighting for." "You are worth fighting for," Claire said firmly. "And now you're wealthy enough that you could go anywhere, do anything. You could even go back to Boston on your own terms if you wanted." "I could," Abigail agreed. She looked around the hotel kitchen, modest, warm, filled with the smell of baking bread and fresh coffee. "But why would I leave home?" Jack's throat tightened. "You mean it? You want to stay?" "I mean it. This hotel, this town, you too, this is where I belong." Abigail smiled, and it transformed her severe features into something radiant. "Besides, someone needs to keep your bookkeeping in order. Left to yourselves, you'd probably trade the hotel for a handful of beans." "It was $1, not beans," Jack protested. "And look how well that turned out," Claire laughed. They celebrated that night with most of Silver Ridge. The hotel dining room overflowed with neighbors who'd stood by them, who'd refused to be swayed by Crane's money or Winter's influence. The new sheriff raised his glass. "To the Rosewood Hotel and the stubborn fools who refuse to give up on it. To second chances," someone else called. "To family you choose," another voice added. Jack pulled Claire close, watching their friends and neighbors celebrate. "We did it," he murmured against her hair. "We did," she agreed. "But Jack, if you ever buy property without consulting me again, I'm going to brain you with a frying pan." He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Yes, ma'am." Across the room, Abigail stood talking with the town's doctor, a widower named Samuel Chen, who'd been making excuses to visit the hotel with increasing frequency. Jack noticed the way Samuel looked at Abigail, and the way she blushed when he smiled. Maybe, Jack thought, Daniel's final gift to Abigail wasn't just the mine. Maybe it was bringing her to Silver Ridge, to a place where she could build a life on her own terms, surrounded by people who saw her value. "You're thinking too hard," Claire said. "I can practically hear the wheels turning. Just thinking about how $1 changed everything." "It wasn't the dollar, Jack. It was you, your kindness, your stubborn refusal to give up." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with those amber eyes that still took his breath away. "You saved me that day on the hotel steps. But you know what? I saved you too. How do you figure? You were just surviving before, working yourself to the bone, alone, with nothing to live for but the next day's labor. Now you're living. There's a difference." Jack kissed her then, deep and thorough, uncaring of their audience. When they finally broke apart, Claire was breathless. What was that for? For being right, for being mine, for being you. "Sappy cowboy," she teased. "You're sappy cowboy. Always." As the party continued around them, Jack felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Contentment. Not just happiness. That was fleeting, dependent on circumstances. This was deeper. This was the bone-deep satisfaction of a man who'd found his place in the world. The Rosewood Hotel had been a ruin when he bought it for $1. Now it was home. And home, he'd learned, wasn't about buildings or bank accounts. It was about the people you gathered around your table, the ones who stood with you when the whole world laughed, the ones who saw you at your worst and loved you anyway. Looking around the crowded dining room, at Claire laughing with the preacher's wife, at Abigail blushing as Dr. Chen brought her punch at the townspeople who'd become friends. Jack finally understood what Daniel had been trying to tell him in those last fevered hours. "Find something worth dying for, little brother," Daniel had whispered. "But more important, find something worth living for." Jack had found both in a condemned hotel and the people it brought into his life, and he wouldn't trade it for all the gold in California. 3 months after Cornelius Winters departed in disgrace, life at the Rosewood Hotel settled into a comfortable rhythm. The silver mine was producing steadily, and with the additional income, they'd expanded the hotel to include 6 more guest rooms and a proper bathing facility with heated water, a luxury that had travelers talking from Denver to San Francisco. But prosperity brought its own complications. Claire stood in the hotel's new kitchen, 3 times the size of the old one, and felt overwhelmingly alone. Jack had been at the mine for 4 days straight, overseeing an expansion of the shaft. Abigail spent most evenings with Dr. Samuel Chen, their courtship progressing with the careful deliberation of 2 people who'd learned not to rush headlong into disaster, which left Claire running the hotel mostly by herself. She didn't begrudge Jack his work. The mine was their future, their security, but she missed him with a physical ache that surprised her. They'd been married less than 6 months, and already the demands of success were pulling them apart. "Mrs. Sullivan?" A young woman appeared in the kitchen doorway, travel-worn and nervous. "I'm looking for a room, just for tonight." Claire wiped flour from her hands and forced a welcoming smile. "Of course. Let me get you registered." As she led the woman, who introduced herself as Emma, to the front desk, Claire noticed the telltale signs: the fading bruise on her temple, barely covered by carefully arranged hair, the way she flinched when a door slammed upstairs, the desperate edge in her voice when she asked, "Your rates include meals, yes?" Claire knew that desperation. She'd worn it like a second skin not so long ago. "For you, meals aren't included," Claire said firmly. "And we have a bathing room if you'd like to wash up. No extra charge." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. You don't know what this means." "I think I do," Claire said gently. "You running from someone?" Emma's face crumpled. "My husband, when he drinks, he gets mean. Real mean. Last night, he came at me with a belt buckle. I waited until he passed out and I ran, but I don't know where to go. I have nowhere." Claire's heart constricted with memory and rage. "You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you under this roof. I promise you that." She got Emma settled, brought her a hot meal, and watched her eat like someone who hadn't seen food in days. When Emma finally retired to her room, Claire sat alone in the lobby, staring at the framed deed on the wall. "Gold isn't what we need here. You are." Jack's words from their first meeting echoed in her mind. He'd seen her value when she couldn't see it herself. Maybe she could do the same for Emma. The idea started small, just offering Emma work in exchange for room and board. But as Claire lay awake that night in the big bed that felt too empty without Jack, the idea grew. How many women were out there right now, trapped in situations like she and Emma had been, desperate, hopeless, thinking they had no choices? The Rosewood Hotel had been condemned when Jack bought it for $1. Everyone said it was worthless. But with work and belief and stubborn refusal to give up, it had become something valuable. Couldn't the same be true for people? When Jack finally returned 2 days later, dusty and exhausted, he found Claire in their private parlor, surrounded by papers covered in calculations and notes. "What's all this?" He kissed the top of her head, savoring the familiar scent of her hair. An idea. Claire pulled him down onto the settee beside her. Jack, what if we used some of the mine money to help women who are in situations like I was? We have the space now. We could offer them work, teach them skills, help them get back on their feet. Jack studied her face, the fierce determination in her amber eyes, the set of her jaw. This was important to her. Tell me more. There's a woman staying with us right now, Emma. She's running from an abusive husband with nothing but the clothes on her back. I gave her a job, but it made me think, how many more are there? Women who need somewhere safe to go, just for a little while, until they can build their own lives. A sanctuary, Jack said slowly. Exactly. We wouldn't advertise it, wouldn't make it official. Just quietly help the women who need it. Give them the same chance you gave me. Jack pulled her close, breathing in her warmth. You don't need my permission for this, Claire. You're not asking me to approve your idea. You're telling me what you've already decided to do. Am I right? She nodded against his chest. Good, because that's the woman I married. The one who hits corrupt sheriffs with tree branches and builds empires out of desperation. He tilted her chin up to meet his eyes. But I'm worried about you. You've been running this place alone while I'm at the mine. That's not sustainable. That's not fair to you. I can handle it. I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. We're partners, remember? Together. He paused. I've been thinking about hiring a mine foreman. Someone I trust to oversee operations, so I don't have to be there every day. Truth is, I miss you. Miss waking up next to you. Miss our morning coffee. Miss everything. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. I miss you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Then it's settled. I'll promote Tom Richardson to foreman. He knows the mine as well as I do, and we'll use the money to hire more staff for the hotel. That way we can help women like Emma without running ourselves into the ground. When did you get so wise? The day I met a woman on some hotel steps who taught me that surviving and living are two different things. They made love that night with the desperate tenderness of two people remembering why they'd fought so hard to be together. Afterward, wrapped in each other, Jack traced the faded scars on Claire's wrists. Do they still hurt? No, not anymore. She covered his hand with hers. You healed me, Jack Sullivan. Not just the bruises, but the broken parts underneath. We healed each other. Over the next weeks, word spread quietly through the network of desperate women. The Rosewood Hotel became known as a place where a woman could find safety, no questions asked. Emma stayed on as kitchen help. 2 more women arrived. Sarah, escaping an arranged marriage, and Margaret, widowed and destitute, with 3 children. Claire threw herself into the work with fierce purpose. She taught the women to cook, to clean, to manage accounts. More importantly, she taught them that they were not property, not damaged goods, not worthless. They were people, and they were worth fighting for. But not everyone approved. The trouble started when Emma's husband, Garrett, showed up at the hotel, drunk and belligerent, demanding his property back. Jack met him at the door. Your wife doesn't live here. The hell she doesn't. I tracked her here. Now get out of my way before I make you. You can try, Jack said mildly. But I should warn you. I'm not in the habit of letting men abuse women under my roof. Garrett took a swing. Jack ducked easily. The man was sloppy drunk and put him on the ground with one efficient punch. Now, Jack said, hauling Garrett to his feet, you're going to walk away. You're going to leave Emma alone. And if I see you around this hotel again, I won't be so gentle. Clear?" Garrett spat blood and fury. "This ain't over. A man's got rights to his wife. Not here, he doesn't." After the sheriff escorted Garrett out of town, Emma collapsed in Claire's arms, sobbing with relief and residual terror. "He'll come back," Emma whispered. "Men like him always come back." "Then we'll be ready," Claire promised. But privately, she worried. They couldn't fight every violent man in the territory. There were too many, and the law didn't always side with women who ran from their husbands. The problem came to a head 2 weeks later, when Margaret's wealthy in-laws arrived from St. Louis with a court order giving them custody of her children. They claimed she was an unfit mother, destitute, living in a hotel, working as a common laborer. Margaret's anguished screams as they tried to take her children echoed through the hotel. Jack and Claire rushed downstairs to find Margaret clinging to her youngest, a 3-year-old boy named Thomas, while 2 grim-faced lawyers brandished legal documents. "This is a lawful order," one lawyer said coldly. "The children belong with their father's family. They'll be properly cared for, educated, raised in a suitable environment." "I'm their mother." Margaret's voice broke. "You can't take my babies." Claire stepped between Margaret and the lawyers. "This woman has committed no crime. She's caring for her children the best way she knows how. You have no right. We have every right. The law is clear. A destitute widow cannot provide adequate care." The lawyer's eyes swept over the hotel with thinly veiled disgust. "Living in charity, dependent on strangers. What kind of life is that for children?" Abigail appeared from the office, her voice sharp as cut glass. "Actually, Mrs. Patterson is not destitute. She's an employee of the Rosewood Hotel with a guaranteed salary and accommodations. Furthermore, she owns shares in a silver mine worth approximately $5,000. Everyone turned to stare at Abigail. "What?" Margaret breathed. Abigail held up a legal document. "As of this morning, Jack and Claire Sullivan transferred 1/6 ownership of the Abigail mine to you, Margaret Patterson, as compensation for your work developing our children's program." She looked at the lawyers coolly. "I believe that constitutes adequate financial resources, wouldn't you say?" The lawyers sputtered, examined the documents, and finally withdrew, muttering about consulting with their clients. After they left, Margaret turned to Jack and Claire in shock. "You gave me part of the mine? That's worth thousands." "You earned it," Jack said simply. "You've been running our kitchen, teaching the other women, caring for your kids while helping other people's kids. That's worth more than silver." Claire added, "Besides, we're building something here. A family. Not by blood, but by choice. And family shares in each other's success." Margaret wept then, not tears of sorrow, but of overwhelming gratitude and relief. That night, as Claire and Jack prepared for bed, she said, "We can't give everyone mine shares. We'll run out eventually. Then we'll find other ways. The point is, we fight for them, all of them, same way we fought for each other." Claire studied her husband in the lamplight. This man who'd bought a condemned hotel for $1 and turned it into a sanctuary. "I love you, Jack Sullivan. Have I told you that recently?" "Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry." She threw a pillow at him, laughing. He caught it and pulled her down onto the bed, and for a while, they forgot about mines and hotels and desperate women and the weight of responsibility. They were just Jack and Claire, 2 broken people who'd found each other and built something beautiful from nothing. Dr. Samuel Chen proposed to Abigail on a Tuesday evening in the hotel garden. Jack and Claire watched from the parlor window as Samuel went down on one knee, Abigail's hand pressed to her mouth in shock. "About time," Jack muttered. "Man's been courting her for 4 months. Let them take their time. They've both been hurt before." Claire leaned against her husband's solid warmth. Besides, some things are worth waiting for. When Abigail came inside, her eyes shining with tears, she held out her hand to show them a simple gold band with a small ruby. "It was his mother's," Abigail said softly. "He's been carrying it for 6 weeks, waiting for the right moment." Claire hugged her fiercely. "I'm so happy for you. I never thought," Abigail's voice broke. "After Daniel died, I thought that was it, that I'd had my one chance at love and lost it. But Samuel, he's different, patient, kind. He sees me, not some idealized version he wants me to be." "That's how you know it's real," Jack said. "When someone loves you for who you are, scars and all." The wedding was planned for late autumn, giving them time to prepare. But planning a wedding while running a hotel-turned-sanctuary proved more complicated than anyone expected. The problem was space. The Rosewood Hotel was full, not just with paying guests, but with women who needed refuge. Emma, Margaret, Sarah, and now 3 more. Ruth, escaping a father who drank away every penny she earned. Josephine, a widow with a newborn. And Catherine, who never spoke about what she was running from, but whose nightmares woke the entire floor. "We need to expand," Claire said one evening, studying the hotel blueprints. "We're turning away women because we don't have room." "The lot next door just went up for sale," Abigail mentioned. She'd been managing the hotel's finances with her usual precision. "It's twice the size of our current property. We could build a separate residence facility. Keep the hotel for paying guests." Jack rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "That's a significant investment." "The mine can afford it," Abigail countered. "And it's the right thing to do." They bought the lot and began construction. But building projects always attracted attention, and not all of it welcome. Reverend Blackwood was the first to voice opposition. He cornered Jack after Sunday service, his face purple with righteous indignation. "Mr. Sullivan, I've heard disturbing rumors about your hotel harboring fallen women." "Fallen women?" Jack's voice went dangerously quiet. "You mean women who've been beaten, starved, and abandoned?" "Those fallen women? Women who've abandoned their marital vows, fled from their rightful husbands, forsaken their duties. Their duty to be punching bags? Their duty to starve quietly? Their duty to let their children be stolen by in-laws who see them as property?" Jack stepped closer, his considerable size suddenly menacing. "Reverend, I suggest you reread the parts of your Bible about helping the least among us, because right now, you sound more like the Pharisees than Jesus." The Reverend sputtered, but Jack had already walked away. The confrontation sparked a divide in Silver Ridge. Some townspeople supported the hotel's mission. Others, like Reverend Blackwood, saw it as an affront to the natural order. Women refusing to submit to male authority, choosing independence over obedience. The tension came to a head when the town council called a special meeting to discuss the woman problem. Jack, Claire, and Abigail attended, along with Dr. Chen and several other supporters. The council chambers were packed, the air thick with hostility. Council Chairman Morris cleared his throat. "We've received complaints about the Rosewood Hotel, specifically concerns that it's become a haven for women fleeing legitimate marriages, undermining family stability." "Legitimate marriages?" Claire stood, her voice ringing clear in the crowded room. "Is it legitimate? when a man beats his wife until she can't walk? Is it legitimate when he drinks away the food money and lets his children starve? Is it legitimate when he sells his daughter to pay his gambling debts? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Because those are the legitimate marriages these women are fleeing. And if this town thinks women should just endure that kind of treatment silently, then Silver Ridge has lost its soul. Mrs. Sullivan makes a fair point, said one council member, a woman named Eleanor Pritchard who'd recently been elected. These women aren't criminals. They're victims seeking safety. They're also becoming productive members of our community, Dr. Chen added. Several have started businesses. They pay taxes. They contribute. What exactly is the problem? The problem, Reverend Blackwood stood, is that you're encouraging women to abandon their vows before God. Marriage is sacred, permanent. So is a woman's right to live without fear, Abigail interrupted coldly. I notice you don't preach about the sanctity of marriage when men abandon their families, only when women dare to save their own lives. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Chairman Morris called for order. The council will take this under advisement. No decisions will be made tonight. He gavelled, the meeting closed. As they filed out, a woman grabbed Claire's arm. Thank you, she whispered, for saying what needed saying, for giving women like us hope. Claire looked at her, really looked, and saw the familiar signs. The long sleeves despite the warm evening. The careful makeup over a bruised cheek. The desperate hunger for validation. Come to the hotel tomorrow, Claire said quietly. We'll have room for you soon. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I can't. My husband will never hurt you again if you don't let him. You have a choice. Claire pressed a card into her hand. The door's always open. When you're ready. Walking home, Jack slipped his arm around Claire's waist. You were magnificent in there. I was furious. How dare they sit in judgment? How dare they suggest those women should just endure abuse for the sake of some man's ego? You know this fight's not over. Blackwood and his ilk won't stop. Let them try. Claire's voice was steel. We're not backing down. Not now. Not ever. Jack pulled her close, pressing his lips to her temple. That's my girl, fierce as a wildcat. Your wildcat, she corrected. Always. Construction on the new building proceeded, despite opposition. Jack hired guards after someone tried to sabotage the foundation. A poorly executed attempt that only strengthened their resolve. Meanwhile, Abigail's wedding preparations continued. She'd chosen a simple ceremony in the hotel garden, with Claire as matron of honor and Jack giving her away. I wish Daniel could be here, Abigail confided to Claire one afternoon as they selected flowers. I know that sounds strange. I'm marrying Samuel, and I'm happy. But Daniel brought me here. His letters gave me courage to leave Boston. In a way, he made all of this possible. He is here, Claire said gently, in the mine that bears your name, in the hotel he helped build. In the fact that you found the strength to choose your own path. Daniel's gift wasn't just love. It was showing you that you deserved better than what your father planned for you. Samuel says something similar, that loving Daniel doesn't diminish what we have. That the heart's big enough for multiple stories. Samuel's a wise man. He is, and patient. Lord, so patient. Abigail laughed. He's waited 4 months for me to stop comparing him to a dead man. But lately, I've realized I'm not comparing anymore. I'm just living, being present with Samuel instead of mourning what might have been with Daniel. That's growth. That's healing. It's what you taught me. You and Jack, the way you both refused to let your pasts define your future. You showed me it was possible. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, crisp autumn air, golden light, leaves turning fire colors on the mountains. Samuel waited at the garden's makeshift altar, looking nervous and hopeful in his best suit. When Abigail appeared on Jack's arm, wearing a simple blue dress that made her gray eyes luminous, Samuel's face transformed with joy. Jack walked her down the petal-strewn path and placed her hand in Samuel's. "Take care of her," he said quietly. "She's family." "I will," Samuel promised, "with everything I am." The ceremony was short and heartfelt. When Samuel kissed his bride, the assembled crowd, a mixture of townspeople, hotel residents, and supporters, erupted in applause. At the reception, Jack found himself watching Claire dance with one of the hotel children. She'd taken to the role of surrogate mother with natural grace, and the children adored her. "You're staring," Abigail said, appearing beside him with Samuel. "Can't help it. She's beautiful." "You're smitten," Samuel teased. "Completely. Hopelessly." Jack grinned. "Best dollar I ever spent." "Speaking of which," Abigail said, her expression turning serious, "Samuel and I have been discussing our future. We've decided to donate our wedding gifts, money our family sent, to the Women's Sanctuary Fund. It's not much, but it's perfect," Jack interrupted, "and generous beyond measure. We also want to offer free medical services to any woman at the hotel," Samuel added. "No charge, no questions asked. Part of building the community we want to live in." Jack shook Samuel's hand firmly. "Welcome to the family, Dr. Chen." As the party continued into the evening, Claire found Jack watching the stars from the garden's edge. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, slipping her hand into his. "How far we've come." 9 months ago, I was sleeping in a condemned hotel, eating beans from a can, with nothing but $1 to my name. Now look at us, running a successful hotel, operating a silver mine, building a sanctuary for women in need. Got you as my wife, Abigail as family, friends who'd go to war for us. Scared it'll all disappear? Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I worry we're tempting fate, asking for too much." Claire turned to face him, cupping his scarred face in her hands. "Jack Sullivan, listen to me. We didn't ask for this. We built it. With sweat and blood and stubborn refusal to give up. That doesn't disappear because we're happy. That doesn't vanish because we dare to want more than just survival. You sure?" "I'm sure, because together," she emphasized the word they'd made their foundation, "together we're stronger than any fate, any enemy, any fear. You taught me that." Jack kissed her then, deep and thorough, tasting wine and wedding cake and hope. "I love you, Claire Sullivan. I love you too. Now come dance with your wife before people start talking about how the hotel owner's too serious." He let her pull him back to the party, back to the music and laughter and celebration. And as he spun her around the makeshift dance floor, Jack realized something profound. He was happy. Not content or satisfied or merely not miserable. Actually, genuinely, deeply happy, and that terrified him more than any bullet or bankruptcy ever could. Because now he had something to lose. Winter came hard that year, arriving early and vicious. By November, Silver Ridge was buried under 3 feet of snow, with temperatures dropping so low that water froze in pipes and breath turned to ice crystals in the air. The hotel became a fortress against the cold. Jack and the hotel staff worked around the clock, keeping fires burning, pipes thawed and pathways clear. The new women's residence building was completed just in time, providing shelter for 12 women and their children. But the cold brought new problems. Food became scarce. The railroad was delayed by avalanches, and supply wagons couldn't navigate the mountain passes. Prices skyrocketed for whatever goods made it through. Jack stood in the hotel's stockroom, tallying their supplies. They had enough to feed their residents for maybe 3 more weeks if they were careful. But the paying guests expected full meals, and turning away hungry people wasn't in his nature. "We're going to run out," he told Claire that night. "Then we hunt, fish, make do." She refused to panic. "We've survived worse." "Have we?" She touched his face gently. "Yes, we have, and we'll survive this too." But the universe wasn't done testing them. Garrett, Emma's abusive husband, returned, this time with 3 friends, all armed and drunk. They showed up at midnight during a blizzard, pounding on the hotel door and demanding Emma be handed over. Jack met them on the front porch, rifle in hand. Behind him, every lamp in the hotel blazed, a deliberate show of force. They weren't hiding. "Told you before, Garrett, Emma's not your property. She's my wife. I got rights. You got nothing. Now get off my property before I shoot you for trespassing. There's 4 of us and 1 of you." Actually, a voice called from the shadows. "There's 4 of you and about 15 of us." Jack glanced over to see Samuel Chen step into the light, holding a shotgun. Behind him came more figures, hotel residents, townspeople, even Reverend Pritchard, Eleanor's progressive husband who'd replaced Blackwood. "This town protects its own," Samuel said calmly, "and Emma's one of ours now. So you can leave peacefully or we can make you leave. Your choice." Garrett looked at the assembled crowd, calculated his odds, and spat into the snow. "This ain't over." "Yeah, it is," Jack said. "Come back and you'll be arrested for trespassing, harassment, and attempted assault. Sheriff's already got a warrant ready. We've been waiting for you to be stupid enough to try something." The sheriff emerged from the hotel, waving the paper. "Mr. Garrett, you're now banned from Silver Ridge town limits. Violate this order and it's 6 months in jail. Understood?" Garrett and his friends slunk away into the blizzard. After they left, Emma collapsed against the doorframe, shaking with relief and residual fear. Claire wrapped her in a blanket and held her while she cried. "It's over," Claire whispered. "Really over. He can't touch you anymore." "How do you know? How can you be sure?" "Because you're not alone anymore. You have people who will fight for you. That changes everything." The community support that night transformed something in the hotel. It wasn't just Jack and Claire's project anymore. It was Silver Ridge's. People who'd been skeptical now understood what they were building. A place where the vulnerable could be safe, where violence wasn't tolerated, where women were seen as people deserving of dignity. Donations started arriving. Food, blankets, clothing. The baker brought day-old bread every morning. The butcher provided meat at cost. Farmers contributed vegetables from their root cellars. They made it through the winter, not just surviving, but thriving. By spring, the Rosewood Hotel and its sanctuary had housed and helped 23 women and 17 children. 12 women had moved on to independent living. 3 had started their own businesses. 2 had remarried, this time by choice, to good men who valued them. Emma was among those who stayed. She'd discovered a talent for bookkeeping, working alongside Abigail to manage the hotel's increasingly complex finances. "I never knew I was good at numbers," Emma confided to Claire one afternoon. My husband always said I was stupid, said I couldn't do anything right. He was wrong about everything, Claire said firmly. You're smart, capable, and brave. Never let anyone make you believe otherwise. As spring thawed the mountain passes, Jack received a letter that made his blood run cold. It was from the territorial governor's office, informing him of a new law under consideration, requiring all boarding houses and hotels to register their residents with local authorities and report any women living apart from husbands or fathers. It's targeted at us, Claire said, reading over his shoulder. They're trying to make what we do illegal. Then we fight it. How? We're not politicians, we're voters, property owners, taxpayers. Jack's jaw set in that stubborn line Claire knew well. And we're not alone. Samuel's on the town council now. Eleanor Pritchard has connections in the territorial legislature. We have allies. What followed was a crash course in political activism. Claire wrote letters, dozens of them, to legislators, newspapers, women's organizations back east. Abigail used her Boston connections to rally support from progressive societies. Jack and Samuel organized town hall meetings, bringing in women who'd been helped by the sanctuary to tell their stories. The fight was exhausting and often discouraging. For every supporter, they encountered 10 opponents who believed women belonged under male control. But they didn't give up. In June, a representative from the territorial legislature visited Silver Ridge to investigate the woman problem personally. Jack and Claire prepared carefully for his arrival, making sure he'd meet their residents, hear their stories, see the productive community they'd built. The representative, a stern man named Harrison Cole, arrived expecting to find moral decay and social disorder. Instead, he found children learning to read in the hotel's makeshift school, women working in a cooperative garden, a thriving community built on mutual support rather than domination. I'll be honest, Cole said at the end of his visit, sitting in the hotel parlor with Jack and Claire. I came here ready to shut you down. The reports made this place sound like a den of iniquity. And, Jack asked carefully, and I see women building lives, children being cared for, a community pulling together. Cole leaned back, studying them. I'm not going to say I agree with everything you're doing. My wife would have my hide if she heard me admitting this, but maybe there's a place for something like this, for women who genuinely need help. That's all we're asking for, Claire said. A chance for women to choose their own paths, to be safe, to be valued. Cole left the next day with a stack of testimonials and a promise to advocate against the proposed law. 3 weeks later, they received word that the legislation had been tabled indefinitely. They'd won. That night, the hotel erupted in celebration. Someone produced a fiddle, and the lobby became an impromptu dance hall. Children raced through the corridors, shrieking with laughter. Women who'd arrived broken and hopeless now smiled, danced, sang. Jack found Claire in the middle of the chaos, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her soundly. We did it, he murmured against her lips. We did, she agreed. But Jack? Yeah? This is just the beginning. There are thousands more women out there who need help. This fight's never really over. I know, but tonight, let's just celebrate the fact that we're winning. So they danced, surrounded by the family they'd chosen, in the hotel that had brought them together. And for one perfect night, the world was exactly as it should be. On a warm July evening, Claire stood in the hotel garden and realized she was late. Not just a few days late, but 3 weeks past when her monthly should have arrived. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach. and she felt equal parts terror and joy. A baby. She might be carrying Jack's baby. She hadn't told him yet, hadn't wanted to raise his hopes if she was wrong. But deep in her bones, she knew the way her body felt different, knew from the wave of nausea that hit every morning, knew from the tenderness in her breasts and the exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. Dr. Samuel Chen confirmed it the next day. "About 6 weeks along, I'd estimate," Samuel said gently. "Congratulations, Claire. How do you feel?" "Terrified," she admitted. "Samuel, what if I'm not ready? What if I can't do this?" "You'll be a wonderful mother. I've seen how you are with the children here. But what if something goes wrong? What if I lose the baby? What if—" her voice broke. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Samuel took her hand. "Claire Sullivan, you survived things that would break most people. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. You fought for justice, built a sanctuary, changed countless lives. You're one of the strongest people I know." He smiled. "This baby is lucky to have you as a mother," she cried then, tears of fear and relief and overwhelming emotion. That evening, she told Jack. They were in their private rooms, preparing for bed. Jack was pulling off his boots when Claire said, "I have something to tell you." Something in her tone made him freeze. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think so. But things are going to change." Jack stood, crossing to her in 2 strides. "Claire, you're scaring me. What is it?" She took his hand and placed it over her still, flat stomach. "We're going to have a baby." For a moment, Jack didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his face crumpled, and he dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against her belly. "A baby," he whispered. "We're going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Claire asked, running her fingers through his hair. He looked up, and she saw tears streaming down his face. "Happy?" "Claire, I don't have words." Terrified, thrilled, honored. He stood, pulling her into his arms so gently, as if she'd become fragile. "How are you feeling? Are you well? Do you need anything? Should you be resting?" She laughed through her own tears. "I'm fine. Samuel says everything looks good. But Jack, I'm scared." "Me too," he admitted. "What if I'm a terrible father? What if I don't know what to do? Then we'll figure it out together, like everything else." That word again. Together. Their foundation, their promise, their truth. Jack held her for a long time, his hand protective over where their child grew. "This baby is going to be so loved," he murmured. "So wanted, so valued. We're going to give them everything we never had." "Safety," Claire said. "Choice," Jack added. "Love. So much love." They stood in the lamplight, 2 people who'd started with nothing, who'd built an empire from $1 and a dream, now creating new life together. The news spread through the hotel like wildfire. Within a day, Claire couldn't walk through the lobby without someone asking how she felt, offering advice, or gifting her hand-knitted baby idols. Emma declared herself Claire's personal assistant, taking over the more strenuous hotel duties. Abigail began planning a nursery with the precision of a military campaign. Margaret's children made cards welcoming their new cousin. But not everyone was thrilled. Claire's father appeared 6 weeks later, the man who'd sold her to pay his debts, who she'd thought she'd never see again. He showed up drunk, as usual, demanding money. "Heard you struck it rich out here," Frank Morrison slurred, cornering Claire in the hotel lobby. "Figure you owe me. You're my daughter. I got rights to your success." Claire felt rage bubble up from somewhere deep and primal. "Rights? You sold me. You traded your own daughter for poker chips. You have no rights to anything from me." "Now that ain't fair. I was in a bad spot. didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You chose cards over me. You chose your addiction over your daughter. Those were your choices. Claire's hand went protectively to her stomach. And now I'm choosing to never let you near my family again. Your family? You mean that cowboy you married? The one who bought a condemned hotel for $1? Frank laughed mockingly. Yeah, I heard that story. You both think you're so special, but you're just trash pretending to be respectable. Jack appeared from the office, and his expression was murderous. Get out. Or what? You gonna hit an old man? No, I'm going to have the sheriff arrest you for trespassing and harassment. Jack moved to stand beside Claire, his presence solid and protective. You're not welcome here. You lost the privilege of calling Claire your daughter the day you sold her. Now leave, before I forget I'm a civilized man. Frank looked between them, calculating. Then his eyes landed on Claire's barely visible pregnancy bump. A baby, huh? Well, I guess that makes me a grandfather. Figure that's worth something. You'll never meet my child, Claire said, her voice shaking with fury. Never. You don't get to pretend to be family now. You don't get to rewrite history. You are nothing to me. Nothing to my baby. Now get out. Frank left, cursing and stumbling. But he returned the next day. And the day after. Always drunk, always demanding money, always trying to guilt Claire into compliance. Finally, Jack and the sheriff went to Frank's camp on the edge of town. Here's what's going to happen, Jack said, dropping a stack of money on Frank's makeshift table. This is $500, enough to get you to California and stake a claim there. You're going to take it and you're going to leave. Today. If you ever come near Claire or our family again, I'll make sure you regret it. And that's not a threat, it's a promise. Frank grabbed the money greedily. $500? That's it? Your wife's sitting on a fortune and you're offering me? Take it or leave it. But if you leave it, you're getting nothing and you're still leaving town. Sheriff's already got vagrancy charges ready to file. Frank took the money and was gone by sunset. When Jack returned to the hotel, he found Claire in their rooms, crying. He's gone, Jack said gently, pulling her into his arms. For good this time. I know I should feel relieved, but mostly I just feel sad. He's my father. He should have loved me, should have protected me. Instead, he saw me as something to sell. His failure doesn't define your worth. You know that, right? I do. But it still hurts. Jack held her while she cried, mourning the father she'd never really had, the childhood that had been stolen, the wounds that would probably never fully heal. Our baby will never know that kind of pain, Claire said finally, wiping her eyes. We're going to love them so fiercely that they'll never doubt their value. Damn right we are. As autumn returned and Claire's belly grew round with life, the hotel prepared for its newest resident. They converted a room next to Jack and Claire's private quarters into a nursery. Abigail organized a baby shower that half the town attended. Dr. Chen made sure Claire had the best prenatal care available, and Jack became hilariously overprotective. You shouldn't be carrying that. Jack, it's a plate. Still, let me get it. I'm pregnant, not fragile. I know, but what if you trip? What if you... Claire kissed him to shut him up. I love you, but if you don't let me do normal activities, I'm gonna brain you with that plate I'm not allowed to carry. He laughed, sheepish. Sorry. I want everything to be perfect. Want you to be safe. I am safe, because I have you. In February, during another brutal winter storm, Claire's water broke. The labor was long and difficult. For 18 hours, Claire fought to bring their child into the world. With Jack beside her, the entire time, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, looking increasingly terrified. "Go slow," he kept saying. "I'll die before I hurt you." "You're not hurting me," Claire gasped between contractions. "The baby is." Samuel worked with calm efficiency, but even he looked worried as midnight came and went. "The baby's turned wrong," he explained. "We may need to—" "No." Claire gritted her teeth. "I can do this." Together, she looked at Jack. "We can do this." Jack pressed his forehead to hers. Together, at 3:17 a.m., their daughter was born, small, red-faced, screaming with impressive volume. "A girl," Samuel announced, placing the baby on Claire's chest. "A healthy baby girl." Claire looked down at her daughter, their daughter, and felt something inside her shift and settle. This tiny, perfect person. This miracle made of love and stubbornness and hope. "Hello, sweetheart," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." Jack touched his daughter's tiny hand with one scarred finger, and she grabbed onto it with surprising strength. He made a sound, halfway between a laugh and a sob. "She's perfect. Claire, she's absolutely perfect." They named her Hope Daniela Sullivan. Hope for what they'd built together. Daniela for the brother who'd brought them together in death as much as he might have in life. The hotel welcomed Hope with open arms. She became everyone's baby, passed from one set of loving hands to another, sung to in multiple languages, showered with affection and handmade gifts. One evening, when Hope was 3 months old, Claire found Jack in the nursery, standing over their daughter's crib with tears streaming down his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, alarmed. "Nothing. Everything. He couldn't finish. Claire wrapped her arms around him from behind, and they stood together, watching their daughter sleep. "I never thought I'd have this," Jack finally said. "A family, a home, a purpose beyond just surviving." He turned to face Claire. "A year and a half ago, I had $1 and a condemned building. Now I have everything." "We have everything," Claire corrected, "and we built it together." Jack kissed her then, soft and reverent. "Best dollar I ever spent." "Best locket I never traded," Claire replied. They stood in the nursery's gentle lamplight, two broken people who'd healed each other, who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd created life and hope and family from dust and desperation. And if you'd told them back on that first day, Claire desperate on the hotel steps, Jack with his last $1 and broken dreams, that this was where they'd end up, neither would have believed it. But that was the thing about hope. It didn't require belief. It just required one person willing to see value where everyone else saw worthlessness. It required someone to say, "Gold isn't what we need here. You are." And from that one moment of recognition, of seeing and being seen, an entire world could be born. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Jack, Claire, and Abigail's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.